late September 1944. Arracourt, northeastern France. The newly arrived M36 Jackson tank destroyer rolled through the ancient village square, its massive 90mm gun dwarfing every other weapon in the American arsenal. German reconnaissance observers, watching from concealed positions in the surrounding hills, photographed this unfamiliar silhouette through field glasses, noting the angular turret and the unusually long barrel that suggested firepower beyond anything they'd encountered from American armor. Send, within days. Those same observers would transmit urgent reports back to Wehrmacht headquarters, describing American tank destroyers capable of penetrating Panther frontal armor at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. The reports seemed impossible. The Americans, whose Sherman tanks struggled to threaten German armor from any angle, had suddenly fielded a weapon that rendered German tactical advantages obsolete. What German intelligence failed to understand was that the M36 represented not just a new weapon, but a fundamental shift in American armored doctrine. A shift born from bitter lessons learned in Normandy's hedgerows, where American tank crews died in burning Shermans, while German Panthers and Tigers picked them apart from comfortable distances. The mathematics of armored warfare were about to be rewritten, not through revolutionary technology, but through the methodical application of industrial capability to solve a clearly defined tactical problem. The Americans had built a tank destroyer that could finally fight German armor on equal terms. The autumn campaign of 1944 in northeastern France represented German armoured warfare at its most desperate. Following the catastrophic defeats in Normandy and the race across France, German panzer divisions had retreated to defensive positions along Germany's western frontier. These formations, though battered and under strength, still possessed significant numbers of Panther and Tiger tanks, weapons that maintained substantial tactical advantages over standard American armour. The 4th Armoured Division encountered this reality during the Battle of Arracourt beginning September 12, 1944. German 5th Panzer Army launched a major counter-offensive aimed at recapturing the city of Nancy and stabilizing the crumbling Western Front. The attacking force included 3 panzer brigades equipped with over 200 Panther tanks, representing one of the largest concentrations of German armour assembled for offensive operations since Normandy. American intelligence had warned of German armour concentrations, but the scale of the attack surprised 4th Armoured Division's commander, Major General John Wood. His division possessed approximately 200 Sherman medium tanks, supported by M10 tank destroyers mounting 3-inch guns. The M10's weapon could penetrate Panther armour only from flank or rear angles at ranges under 500 meters. Frontal engagement remained virtually impossible. Panthers could engage Shermans effectively from 2,000 meters, maintaining comfortable standoff distances while methodically destroying American armour. September 13, 1944. Combat Command A of 4th Armoured Division occupied positions around Arracourt when German forces struck at dawn. Panther tanks from the 113th Panzer Brigade advanced through morning fog, catching American forward positions by surprise. The initial engagement demonstrated German tactical superiority decisively. Sherman tanks attempted to maneuver for flank shots, while M10 tank destroyers provided covering fire, but the Panthers' longer-range guns and superior armor protection allowed them to destroy American vehicles before closing to effective engagement range. By mid-morning, Combat Command A had lost 17 Sherman tanks and 6 M10 tank destroyers. German forces had lost only 8 Panthers, most to flank shots achieved, through aggressive maneuvering or to airstrikes called in by forward observers. The loss ratio shocked American commanders. Standard tank versus tank doctrine, which relied on maneuver and numerical superiority to overwhelm German armor through flanking attacks, collapsed when German forces possessed sufficient numbers to maintain defensive fronts. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The tactical crisis facing American armored forces in autumn 1944 stemmed from fundamental mismatches between American tank doctrine and battlefield reality. American pre-war armor doctrine, developed throughout the 1930s, had envisioned tank warfare as primarily involving exploitation of breakthroughs created by infantry and artillery. tanks would penetrate deep into enemy rear areas, disrupting communications and supply lines while avoiding engagement with enemy armor. Tank destroyers, highly mobile and lightly armored vehicles mounting powerful guns, would counter enemy armored counterattacks. This doctrine assumed that American tanks would rarely fight other tanks directly. Therefore, American medium tanks like the Sherman mounted 75mm guns, optimized for high explosive ammunition, effective against infantry, fortifications, and soft-skinned vehicles. Armor-piercing capability remained secondary. German doctrine, by contrast, assumed tank versus tank combat as fundamental to armored operations. German medium and heavy tanks mounted high-velocity guns specifically designed for armor penetration. The Panther's 75mm KWK 42 liters 70 gun achieved muzzle velocities of 3,000 feet per second, nearly double the Sherman's 75mm M3 gun. This velocity translated directly into armor penetration capability. Combat experience in North Africa, Sicily, and Italy had revealed American doctrine's inadequacies, but institutional resistance to change persisted. The Ordnance Department argued that upgunning Sherman tanks would reduce high explosive effectiveness and slow production. Tank Destroyer Command insisted that existing M10 tank destroyers provided sufficient anti-armor capability if properly employed. Senior armor commanders, conditioned by pre-war doctrine, accepted these arguments despite mounting evidence from frontline units. Normandy shattered these comfortable assumptions. June and July 1944 saw American armored divisions encounter German Panther and Tiger tanks in sustained combat for the first time. The results proved devastating. Sherman tanks, equipped with 75mm guns, could not penetrate Panther frontal armor at any range. Side armor required ranges under 500 meters. Rear armor, the only reliably vulnerable area, required difficult flanking maneuvers under fire. Panthers could destroy Shermans frontally from 2,000 meters, effectively with impunity. American tank crews developed profound psychological trauma confronting this tactical helplessness. Medical officers documented what they termed Panther fear among Sherman crews, similar to tiger phobia observed in North Africa but more widespread given Panthers' greater numbers. Tank crews requested transfer to other branches. Replacement crews required extensive psychological counseling before deployment. Experienced crews developed elaborate tactical schemes attempting to overcome firepower disadvantages, but these depended on terrain, weather, and German tactical errors, none reliably present in combat. The M10 tank destroyer, theoretically the solution to German armor superiority, proved inadequate. Its 3-inch gun, mounted in an open-topped turret, could penetrate Panther side armor at reasonable ranges, but struggled against frontal armor. The vehicle's thin armor and slow turret traverse made it vulnerable in close combat. Most critically, M10 production numbers couldn't match demand. Tank destroyer battalions supporting infantry divisions fought continuously, sustaining heavy losses that outpaced replacement vehicle deliveries. By August 1944, American commanders confronting German armor enjoyed only two reliable advantages: overwhelming numerical superiority and complete air supremacy. Neither advantage proved decisive in the kind of close-range, restricted visibility combat that characterized Normandy hedgerows. American forces needed a weapon that could engage German armor directly, at extended ranges, with reasonable expectation of successful penetration. They needed a tank or tank destroyer mounting a gun comparable to German high-velocity weapons. The solution had existed in development since 1942, delayed by bureaucratic inertia and competing priorities. The Ordnance Department had begun studying 90mm anti-tank guns in autumn 1942, recognizing that German tank development would eventually produce vehicles immune to 3-inch guns. The 90mm M1 anti-aircraft gun, modified for anti-tank use, provided the basis for this development. This weapon achieved muzzle velocities of 2,800 feet per second with armor-piercing ammunition, sufficient to penetrate any known German armor at combat ranges. Mounting this gun in a mobile platform presented significant engineering challenges. The M10 tank destroyer's turret could not accommodate the 90mm gun's weight and recoil forces without extensive redesign. A new turret featuring powered traverse and careful weight distribution became necessary. The resulting design, designated T-71 gun motor carriage during development, combined the M10's reliable chassis, based on Sherman components, with an enlarged turret mounting the 90mm gun M3. Testing throughout 1943 proved the design sound. The 90mm gun could penetrate 4.8 inches of armor plate at 1,000 yards using standard armor-piercing ammunition. Specialized tungsten core high-velocity armor-piercing ammunition could penetrate 7.8 inches under the same conditions. This performance exceeded any German armor then in service, including the Tiger heavy tank's frontal armor. The weapon finally provided American forces with armor-penetrating capability matching German guns. Production authorization came in June 1944, designated 90mm gun motor carriage M36. By September, the first production vehicles reached European theatre of operations, assigned to tank destroyer battalions supporting armoured and infantry divisions. Initial deliveries remained limited. Only 236 M36s reached combat units by December 20, 1944, insufficient to equip all tank destroyer battalions. Priority went to units facing the most severe German armour threats. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, supporting 4th Armoured Division, received its first M36s in late September 1944, immediately before the Arracourt battles. The battalion's M10 tank destroyers had suffered heavily during the division's advance across France, and crews welcomed the new vehicles despite lacking training on the unfamiliar equipment. The 704th's commander, Lieutenant Colonel Louis Ripperger, recognized his battalion's M36s represented the only American weapons in the division capable of engaging Panthers at extended range with confidence. September 29, 1944, the German counter-offensive at Arracourt reached its climax. 5th Panzer Army had committed all available reserves, including elements of 1st SS Panzer Division returning from northern France. Over 150 German tanks, mostly Panthers with some Tiger tanks, concentrated for a massive assault intended to overwhelm 4th Armoured Division through sheer weight of numbers. German commanders expected their armour superiority to compensate for American advantages in artillery and air support. The assault began at dawn through heavy fog that grounded American aircraft. German Panthers advanced in company-strength formations, maintaining cohesion while seeking to exploit any gaps in American defensive positions. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion deployed its M36s in concealed positions, covering likely German approach routes, with M10 tank destroyers providing secondary coverage. The M36 crews, many encountering German armour for the first time with this weapon, prepared to test whether the 90mm gun's performance matched specifications. First contact came at approximately 0730 hours, when a Panther company emerged from the fog at 1,400 meters range. The lead M36 tank destroyer, commanded by Staff Sergeant Henry Bayer, opened fire with high-velocity armor-piercing ammunition. The first round struck the Panther's frontal armor with a bright flash, penetrating cleanly. The German tank exploded as ammunition ignited, sending the turret 10 meters into the air. Bayer's crew fired 3 more rounds in rapid succession, destroying 2 additional Panthers before the German formation reacted. The German company attempted to withdraw into the fog, but additional M36s engaged from flanking positions. Within 10 minutes, 8 Panthers burned, while the remainder retreated in disorder. American tank destroyer crews, accustomed to firing numerous rounds to achieve kills against German armor, found themselves consistently destroying Panthers with single shots. The psychological impact on American crews proved almost as significant as the tactical advantage. Crews who had fought Panthers for months while equipped with inadequate weapons suddenly possessed firepower that made German armor vulnerable. Throughout the day, M36 tank destroyers engaged German armor at ranges previously impossible for American weapons. Engagements at 1,500 to 2,000 meters became routine, distances where Panthers had previously operated with impunity. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion's after-action report noted 41 confirmed tank kills, with M36s accounting for 37. The battalion lost 4 M36s and 6 M10s, all to flanking attacks by German tanks that had penetrated American positions before the tank destroyers could engage. The Battle of Arracourt continued through the first week of October 1944. German forces lost over 240 tanks and assault guns, roughly 60% of the armour committed to the offensive. 4th Armoured Division lost approximately 48 Sherman tanks, 18 M10 tank destroyers, and 7 M36 tank destroyers. The loss ratio, while still favouring German forces in vehicle-to-vehicle exchanges, represented dramatic improvement over previous engagements. More importantly, American forces had repulsed a major German armoured offensive, achieving decisive tactical and operational victory. German after-action reports noted American employment of a new tank destroyer, mounting a weapon capable of defeating Panther frontal armour at extended range. Intelligence officers conducted battlefield surveys, attempting to recover examples of this new weapon or its ammunition for technical examination. Several damaged M36s fell into German hands during local counterattacks, providing German ordnance specialists their first detailed look at the 90mm gun and its ammunition. The examination revealed what German engineers had suspected since encountering reports of the weapon in combat. Americans had methodically solved the armour penetration problem by mounting their most powerful anti-tank gun in a mobile platform. The solution lacked elegance or innovation. The M36 combined existing Sherman chassis components with an enlarged turret and the proven 90mm gun. But the solution worked reliably, required no exotic materials, and could be manufactured in quantities sufficient to equip frontline units. American industrial approach to weapons development had again produced a practical, effective solution to a clearly defined tactical problem. German technical assessment of the M36 revealed design philosophy fundamentally different from German approaches to tank destroyer development. German tank destroyers, like the Panther and Ferdinand, emphasized maximum armor protection and gun performance, accepting reduced mobility and mechanical complexity as necessary trade-offs. The Panther mounted an 88mm gun in a fully enclosed casemate with 120mm of frontal armor, creating a formidable but mechanically complex vehicle weighing 46 tons. The M36, by contrast, accepted minimal armor protection in exchange for mobility and mechanical reliability. The turret's thin armor plating, designed primarily to protect against shell, fragments and small arms fire, could not withstand hits from any German tank gun. The open-topped turret left crews exposed to artillery airbursts and infantry fire. But these vulnerabilities allowed the vehicle to maintain the Sherman chassis' proven reliability, while mounting a gun comparable to German weapons. The design prioritized getting a powerful gun to the battlefield in quantity over creating an invulnerable platform. This design philosophy reflected fundamental differences in American and German industrial capabilities and tactical circumstances. German industry, straining under Allied bombing and resource shortages, could not produce tank destroyers in quantities sufficient to equip all units requiring anti-armor capability. German designers therefore prioritized individual vehicle survivability, reasoning that vehicles with heavy armor and superior guns would achieve favorable loss ratios even when outnumbered. This reasoning made sense when facing Soviet forces equipped with adequate but not superior armor and anti-tank weapons. American industry faced no such constraints. Production capacity exceeded tactical requirements across virtually all weapons categories. American designers could prioritize rapid deployment and quantity production, accepting that individual vehicles might be vulnerable if sufficient numbers reached frontline units. The M36's thin armor and open turret became acceptable when battalions could field full complements of vehicles, with reserves available for rapid replacement of losses. The tactical employment doctrine surrounding the M36 also differed markedly from German tank destroyer concepts. German Panzerjäger units fought primarily defensively, positioned in concealed locations to ambush advancing enemy armor. Their heavy armor allowed them to survive initial enemy fire while delivering killing shots. American tank destroyer doctrine, despite its name, emphasized mobility and offensive action. Tank destroyer battalions operated as mobile reserves, rushing to threatened sectors to engage enemy armor breakthroughs. The M36's Sherman-derived chassis provided the mobility this doctrine demanded, while the 90mm gun provided the firepower to engage German armor at ranges sufficient for survivability. November 1944. The M36 entered production, accelerated by urgent demands from European theatre of operations. Every after-action report from units employing M36s emphasized the weapon's transformative impact on anti-armor operations. Commanders requested immediate conversion of all M10 battalions to M36 standard, recognizing that the 3-inch gun had become obsolete against latest-generation German armor. The Ordnance Department responded by increasing M36 production and initiating crash programs to convert existing M10s to M36 configuration through turret replacement. Production faced immediate challenges. The 90mm gun's barrel required specialized machining, and production capacity remained limited. Turret manufacturing required skilled welders and careful quality control to ensure proper weight distribution for powered traverse. Most critically, conversion of existing M10 hulls proved more complex than anticipated, as internal modifications beyond simple turret replacement became necessary to accommodate the 90mm gun's greater weight and recoil forces. General Motors' Fisher Tank Arsenal, primary M36 contractor, implemented multiple shifts and expanded production facilities to meet demand. Between October and December 1944, production reached approximately 200 vehicles monthly, insufficient to equip all tank destroyer battalions, but adequate to prioritize units facing the most severe German armor threats. Priority allocation went to battalions supporting armored divisions and those operating in sectors where German panzer concentrations remained significant. The production challenge intensified when planners realized existing M10 hulls would not provide sufficient numbers to meet demand. Engineering teams devised an alternative solution, mounting M36 turrets directly onto M4A3 Sherman hulls without the intermediate M10 conversion. These vehicles, designated M36B1, entered production in October 1944. 187 M36B1s reached European theatre by year's end, augmenting standard M36 deliveries and allowing additional tank destroyer battalions to receive 90mm guns. December 16, 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. German forces launched their final major offensive on the Western Front, attacking through the supposedly quiet Ardennes sector, held by 4 under-strength American infantry divisions. The initial assault achieved complete tactical surprise, with 3 German armies, including substantial panzer forces, smashing through American forward positions and driving deep into Allied rear areas. The offensive, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, represented Germany's last attempt to achieve decisive victory in the West through mobile armored warfare. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. German armored forces committed to the Ardennes offensive included approximately 600 tanks and assault guns, with significant numbers of Panthers and Tiger IIs, the latter representing the heaviest armored vehicles Germany had fielded in quantity. These Tiger IIs mounted the 88mm KBUK 43 litres, 71 gun, and featured frontal armour up to 180mm thick, making them virtually immune to most Allied anti-tank weapons at combat ranges. German commanders expected their armour superiority, combined with surprise and favourable terrain, to overwhelm American defensive positions before reinforcements could arrive. American defensive forces in the Ardennes included minimal armour, mostly consisting of separate tank and tank destroyer battalions supporting infantry divisions. 3 tank destroyer battalions equipped with M36s, the 610th, 703rd, and 740th, found themselves directly in the path of German offensive spearheads. These battalions would provide the only American weapons capable of engaging the heaviest German armour at effective ranges, and their performance would significantly influence the battle's outcome. The 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, supporting the 2nd Infantry Division near the Siegfried Line, encountered the lead elements of 6th SS Panzer Army on December 17th. Kampfgruppe Paper, spearheading the German advance, included Tiger II heavy tanks and Panther medium tanks attempting to reach the Meuse River through rapid exploitation. The battalion's M36 tank destroyers deployed in hasty defensive positions covering road junctions critical to the German advance. First contact came near the village of Stavelot when 3 Tiger IIs approached an M36 commanded by Staff Sergeant Bill Davidson. The Tiger II's thick frontal armour theoretically provided immunity to the M36's 90mm gun, using standard ammunition. Davidson's gunner, Corporal James Miller, fired their only available tungsten core high-velocity armour-piercing round at the lead Tiger II from approximately 800 metres. The round struck the Tiger II's turret front at an oblique angle, penetrating with difficulty but destroying the tank. The remaining Tiger IIs withdrew, unwilling to risk further engagement without infantry support. This engagement, repeated in modified form dozens of times during the opening days of the Ardennes offensive, demonstrated that M36S could threaten even the heaviest German armour under favourable conditions. While the 90mm gun struggled against Tiger II frontal armour, using standard ammunition, tungsten core rounds provided sufficient penetration if crews could achieve hits on the turret front or upper hull where armour plates met at angles. More importantly, the M36's presence forced German armour to advance cautiously, reducing the rapid exploitation that German operational plans required. The 610th Tank Destroyer Battalion, supporting the 7th Armoured Division near Street Vith, fought a protracted delaying action from December 17th through December 21st. The battalion's M36S engaged German armour at ranges from 500 to 1500 metres, destroying confirmed 37 German tanks and assault guns while losing 11 M36S. The battalion's after-action report emphasised that M36's ability to engage Panthers at extended range allowed American forces to maintain defensive cohesion despite being heavily outnumbered. Had the battalion been equipped with M10S mounting 3-inch guns, commanders believed German armour would have overwhelmed defensive positions through superior standoff firepower. The defensive stand at Street Vith delayed German forces for nearly 5 critical days, disrupting the offensive's carefully planned timetable and allowing American reinforcements to establish defensive positions farther west. Historians later identified Street Vith's defense as one of the battle's critical turning points, where small numbers of American forces imposed disproportionate delays on superior German formations. The M36 tank destroyer's contribution to this defense proved essential, providing the only weapons capable of engaging German heavy armour with confidence. The Battle of the Bulge continued through January 1945, eventually resulting in complete German defeat and the destruction of Germany's last operational reserves. American forces lost approximately 700 tanks and tank destroyers during the campaign, but German losses exceeded 800 armoured vehicles. More critically, Germany could not replace these losses, while American production continued delivering replacement vehicles to frontline units within weeks. The strategic balance in armoured warfare had shifted decisively toward American forces. German intelligence officers analysing the Ardennes battle noted M36 employment extensively in post-action reports. One captured German document, a tactical assessment prepared for 6th SS Panzer Army headquarters, described the M36 as the first American armoured vehicle mounting a gun comparable to German weapons of equivalent class. The report recommended that German panzer units avoid engagement with M36S at ranges beyond 1,000 metres, unless possessing overwhelming local superiority, advice that acknowledged the 90mm gun's effectiveness. The assessment continued by noting that M36S appeared in quantities, suggesting American industry could produce them in numbers sufficient to equip all tank destroyer battalions. This production capability, combined with American air superiority and artillery superiority, meant that German armoured forces could no longer rely on individual vehicle technical superiority to achieve tactical success. The mathematics had become brutally simple. American industry could produce and deploy advanced weapons faster than German forces could destroy them. While German industry could not replace losses at rates necessary to maintain force strength, this realization, though never formally acknowledged in official German planning documents during the war, represented the final collapse of German confidence in technological superiority as a pathway to victory. German tank designers throughout the war had pursued increasingly sophisticated armor and weapons systems, believing that superior individual vehicles could overcome numerical disadvantages and logistical constraints. The Tiger and Panther tanks embodied this philosophy, representing German engineering excellence applied to create tactically superior weapons. The M36 demonstrated that American industry could match or exceed German technical capabilities, while simultaneously producing weapons in quantities German industry could not approach. The 90mm gun matched the Panther's 75mm KBUK 42 inches practical effectiveness at combat ranges. The M36's Sherman-derived chassis provided reliability German tanks consistently lacked. Most importantly, American factories produced M36s at rates that allowed equipping substantial numbers of battalions while simultaneously manufacturing thousands of Sherman tanks, artillery pieces, and every other category of military equipment. February 1945. Western Germany. As Allied forces pushed into German territory, M36 tank destroyers operated alongside Sherman tanks in combined arms formations that demonstrated the evolution of American armored doctrine throughout the war. The pre-war assumption that tanks would avoid tank versus tank combat while tank destroyers handled enemy armor had proven unworkable in practice. By war's end, Sherman tanks, M36, tank destroyers, and infantry worked together in flexible combined arms teams that adapted tactics to specific situations rather than adhering rigidly to doctrinal templates. The 776th Tank Destroyer Battalion's experience during the Rhine River crossings illustrated this evolved approach. The battalion's M36s provided long-range anti-armor overwatch, while Sherman tanks engaged fortifications and infantry positions at closer ranges. When German armor appeared, M36s engaged at maximum effective range, while Shermans maneuvered for flank shots or provided suppressing fire. This cooperation reflected hard-won tactical lessons about how American armor's numerical superiority and combined arms flexibility could overcome individual German vehicles' technical advantages. March 19, 1945. The last significant engagement between M36s and German armor occurred during fighting along the Rhine River, when elements of the 11th Panzer Division attempted a local counterattack against American bridgehead positions. The 628th Tank Destroyer Battalion, equipped with M36s, engaged approximately 30 German tanks at ranges from 800 to 1800 meters, destroying 23 confirmed, while losing 4 M36s. The engagement demonstrated that by war's end, German armor had lost both technical superiority and tactical effectiveness against American combined arms formations. The Rhine crossing engagements also produced the war's longest-range confirmed tank destroyer kill, when an M36 from the 703rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, the same unit that had fought at Street, Vith, during the Battle of the Bulge, destroyed a Panther at approximately 3,800 meters using high-velocity armor-piercing ammunition. While this extreme-range engagement remained exceptional, it demonstrated the 90mm gun's potential effectiveness under ideal conditions, with skilled crews and quality ammunition. German technical assessment of captured M36s, conducted at various testing facilities, including Kummersdorf near Berlin, revealed design elements that contrasted sharply with German approaches. German engineers noted the turret's thin armor with apparent disapproval, calculating that even-towed 75mm anti-tank guns could penetrate the M36's protection at combat ranges. The open-topped turret design seemed particularly vulnerable to German engineers accustomed to fully enclosed fighting compartments that protected crews from artillery and small arms fire. Yet the same reports acknowledged the M36's practical effectiveness. The 90mm gun's performance exceeded German expectations based on previous encounters with American armor. The Sherman-derived chassis demonstrated reliability that German test drivers found remarkable after years working with German vehicles that required constant maintenance. The powered turret traverse operated smoothly even after the vehicle had been subjected to rough handling. During capture, every system reflected a design philosophy that prioritized functionality and ease of maintenance over theoretical optimization. One German test report, discovered in Wehrmacht archives after the war, included a particularly telling passage. The engineer, name redacted in the surviving document, wrote, "The American vehicle represents a completely different approach to the tank destroyer problem, where our designs seek to create vehicles capable of surviving enemy fire through superior armor while delivering superior firepower. The American design accepts vulnerability in exchange for mobility and ease of production. In defensive warfare, with limited industrial capacity, our approach proves superior. In offensive warfare supported by unlimited industrial capacity and complete air superiority, the American approach proves devastating. We have designed weapons for a war we cannot win. The Americans have designed weapons for the war they are winning." This assessment, written sometime in early 1945, based on context clues in the document, represented a rare moment of clarity from German engineering staff about the fundamental inadequacy of German weapons design philosophy given strategic circumstances. German tanks and tank destroyers represented engineering excellence in isolation, but they could not be produced in numbers sufficient to matter strategically, could not be sustained logistically in extended operations, and could not compensate through individual superiority for American advantages in quantity, logistics, and air support. The M36, by contrast, represented adequate engineering applied at industrial scale. The vehicle featured no revolutionary technologies. The 90mm gun derived from anti-aircraft weapons. The chassis used proven Sherman components. The turret employed conventional armor plate and commercially available hydraulic systems. Nothing about the M36 suggested engineering innovation or technical brilliance. Yet the combination of adequate components produced a weapon that accomplished its mission reliably while being manufactured in quantities sufficient to equip frontline units. April 1945. As Germany collapsed under coordinated Allied offensives from east and west, M36 tank destroyers continued operations in combined arms formations that demonstrated how far American armored doctrine had evolved since 1942. The pre-war concept of separate tank and tank destroyer forces pursuing distinct missions had given way to flexible combined arms formations where all armored vehicles cooperated to accomplish tactical objectives. M36S provided long-range anti-armor capability, while Sherman tanks engaged at closer ranges and provided high-explosive fire support. The final weeks of combat saw M36 tank destroyers engaging increasingly desperate German defences, including roadblocks manned by Volkssturm militia equipped with Panzerfaust anti-tank rockets. The thin-skinned M36 proved particularly vulnerable to these close-range weapons, reinforcing lessons about the importance of infantry-armor cooperation in urban combat. Tank destroyer battalions adapted by employing infantry screens to suppress anti-tank teams before exposing M36S to close-range fire. Another example of tactical flexibility developed through combat experience. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. The war against Germany ended with M36 tank destroyers deployed throughout American occupation zones in Germany and Austria. Approximately 1,400 M36S of all variants had been produced by war's end, with roughly 800 surviving in operational condition. Production continued briefly after German surrender as planners prepared for potential operations against Japan, but the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August rendered further production unnecessary. The M36 never saw combat in the Pacific theater. Post-war analysis by both American and German military historians confirmed what battlefield experience had demonstrated throughout the war's final months. The M36 represented the first American armored vehicle, mounting a gun capable of engaging German heavy armor on equal terms at combat ranges. This capability, while arriving late in the war, proved decisive during the critical winter battles of 1944 to 1945, when German forces mounted their final offensive efforts. Had American forces entered the Ardennes battle equipped only with M10 tank destroyers, historians speculate that German armor might have achieved deeper penetrations before Allied reinforcements stabilized the situation. The M36's impact extended beyond its immediate tactical effectiveness. The vehicle demonstrated that American industry could rapidly develop and field advanced weapons when operational necessity demanded. The relatively short timeline from initial testing in 1943 to combat deployment in September 1944 contrasted sharply with the multi-year development cycles typical of German weapons programs. This rapid development reflected not just industrial capacity but institutional flexibility and willingness to prioritize practical results over theoretical perfection. German weapons development, by contrast, consistently pursued increasingly sophisticated solutions to tactical problems, often at the expense of production efficiency and logistical sustainability. The Ferdinand tank destroyer, mounting an 88mm gun in a heavily armored superstructure, represented German engineering excellence but proved mechanically unreliable and difficult to maintain in field conditions. The jagged Panther improved on Ferdinand's reliability but required specialized manufacturing facilities and skilled labor increasingly unavailable as the war progressed. Both vehicles achieved impressive tactical results when operational but appeared in numbers too small to influence operational outcomes. The M36's legacy extended far beyond World War II. The vehicle saw extensive combat service during the Korean War, where its 90mm gun proved highly effective against Soviet-supplied T-34 medium tanks. American forces valued the M36's reliability and firepower during the war's mobile phases, though the vehicle's thin armor proved vulnerable in static defensive positions. M36S remained in U.S. Army service until the mid-1950s, when they were replaced by purpose-built main battle tanks mounting guns in fully enclosed turrets. International military assistance programs distributed hundreds of M36S to Allied nations throughout the 1950s and 60s. Yugoslavia received nearly 400 M36S, operating them through the 1990s with various modifications including engine upgrades and additional armor. Pakistani, Iranian, and South Korean forces also operated M36S in various conflicts, demonstrating the design's longevity and continued tactical relevance decades after initial deployment. The fact that M36S saw combat service over 5 decades after their introduction testified to the fundamental soundness of the basic design. The captured M36S that German engineers tested at facilities like Kummersdorf provided German technical staff their final lessons about American weapons design philosophy. Those lessons came too late to influence German weapons development, but they informed post-war understanding of how industrial capacity and design philosophy interacted to determine military effectiveness. German engineers, trained to pursue technical excellence and sophisticated solutions, confronted practical American engineering that prioritized reliability, manufacturability, and adequate performance over theoretical optimization. This philosophical divide extended far beyond tank destroyers to encompass German and American approaches to military technology generally. German weapons throughout the war featured sophisticated design elements that required skilled labor, specialized materials, and extensive maintenance. These weapons achieved impressive performance when operational, but could not be produced in quantities sufficient to matter strategically, and could not be sustained in extended field operations given German logistical limitations. American weapons, by contrast, accepted adequate rather than optimal performance in exchange for reliability, ease of manufacture, and logistical sustainability. The M36 tank destroyer embodied this American approach perfectly. Its 90mm gun provided firepower matching German weapons without requiring exotic materials or specialized manufacturing. Its Sherman-derived chassis offered proven reliability using components already in mass production. Its open-topped turret accepted vulnerability in exchange for reduced weight and simplified manufacturing. The complete package represented practical engineering, solving a clearly defined tactical problem through application of existing industrial capacity rather than pursuing revolutionary innovations. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.